I see our esteemed lecturer is here and people continue to join us. And so we're so grateful to have you. My name is Molly Marshall, and I'm the president here at United, and having such a wonderful time with gifted faculty and students and staff in a very good season of renewal. Tonight we have with us alums and friends and new friends, donors and students. And so please drop your name and location into the chat as you are comfortable doing so, so that we can have a sense of all who have gathered this evening. Over this past year, we've been having this favorite faculty lecture series, which has been great fun as we invite our faculty to do what they do best, which is to offer their gifts of teaching and give us a glimpse of what they are passionate about and what they bring to the classroom. And so our hope is that you will have opportunity to see the breadth and wonder of the educational experience at United. It's now my privilege to call on Samantha Carwyn, who will introduce Dr. Sabia-Tanis. Sam, a member of the class of 2022, who just barely finished just about 2.5 weeks ago, graduated along with 26 other students with an MDiv in church leadership and social transformation. So Sam, you know firsthand the goodness of what Dr. Sabia-Tanis brings to the classroom. Would you introduce him, please?
I apologize for being on my phone. It's moving day, like most students at the end of a semester. I am so grateful that I was invited to introduce Dr. Sabia-Tanis and have found so much gratitude and happiness being in his presence. One of my motivations for coming to United was all of the things that it offers for not only the students, but the way that we can connect with each other. And so when I got in contact with him and was able to learn that we came from the same faith background, and just the presence in the room, I was always looking for an opportunity to be in a class, and lucky for me that I decided to do social transformation, and that is his area of study. For me, what I love most about having Dr. Sabia-Tanis as a teacher has been seeing fully what it means to bring your whole self into a room, to be authentic in your teaching, to be honest in who you are, to own all the ways that you've grown and all the ways that you're continuing to grow, and to nurture that in each of us as his students, to help us recognize the ways that we're all special and help us find our way, whether that's what we thought we were going to be doing when we first came into seminary or what we found out that we were doing years in, but really cares about us finding what feeds our souls and helps us on our path to what we're supposed to be in our lives. I joke and I tell him all the time, I warn people, if you need a book, like Justin has all the books, and just take the time to go look in the library of Justin Sabia-Tanis' office and talk through and be in conversation with all of the things that are in the library brain. So I'm grateful for getting an opportunity for us to hear a little bit more about what's in his mind and how he does this work and continues to challenge us in our own growth and doing this work in a way that serves our greater world while not neglecting ourselves.
Oh, thank you so much, Sam. I really appreciate that, especially since you're doing this on a day when you were in the midst of moving. So thank you so much. It's such an honor to have you and other students in the class. So I had a beautiful PowerPoint today, but this is literally like those days when you have that worst nightmare of a teacher in which the computer completely goes down and crashes right before you do something. So I'm on a different computer. And so I won't be able to share that with you because it's in PowerPoint and I'm on a Mac, but we will nevertheless. I think we can do without it. So I wanted to begin by thanking Dr. Cindy Beth Johnson for arranging this lecture series, and also to my colleagues on the faculty who have gone before me with such brilliant talks. I will admit to being rather intimidated by going last, especially after the incredibly insightful talk by Dean Roberts last month. So I will do my best this evening, but there's been such brilliant lectures, and I'm grateful to my colleagues for those as well. So I want to begin by acknowledging that we're on the land of the Dakota and Anishinaabe people, who are the past, current, and future caretakers of the land, air, and water of this place. We're grateful to them and seek to live in solidarity with them in this space. I also want to name that we are want to name the horrendous act of white supremacy with the latest shooting in Buffalo that took sacred Black lives this past week. There is so much work to do to bring our world into alignment with God's vision. And tonight, I want to give some thoughts about how we might go about that healing justice work. So I am a person who has a great deal of difficulty selecting a favorite anything. Why pick a favorite book when there are so many amazing things to read? Or how would I determine a favorite song in the midst of such wonderful sounds to hear? Or how would I find a favorite meal when so much tastes delicious? So when I was asked to give my favorite lecture for this series, I was surprised to realize that I do have one that I particularly love to give. And this talk will actually be an amalgamation of several things that are part of my leadership and strategies for social change class that's required of most United students. And I've thrown in some bonus content along the way. So first, I'm going to offer some context and offer some ideas of how we might use spiritual practices to sustain us in our justice seeking. So here's what I hope you will get out of tonight: that the cultivation of our interior lives provides us with the necessary motivation, skills, and perseverance to make meaningful and necessary change in our world. That spiritual practices attune us to the suffering, joy, needs, and balance of our living world in ways that make a difference in the lives of others. So let's start with some foundational premises for tonight. You might not agree with everything I say, which is totally fine, and we can discuss that later if you like. But for the purposes of this lecture, these are the basic tenets. So before I get to the content of the lecture itself, which comes later in the semester. So you may have heard of like Shakespeare in an hour, in which they condense all the plays into a shortened cycle. Well, this first part of the lecture is sort of the beginning of the semester in a few minutes. And then we'll get to talking about spiritual practices. And I'd like to suggest a few ways that they may shift our perspectives on things. So foundationally, first of all, I want to say I believe in a God who created the world and declared it was good, that we start from a place of essential goodness and original blessing, that we are created in the image and likeness of the divine, as are all other creatures and beings, and we carry that holy spark into the world. The violence, the divisions among us are an aberration of God's vision for our world and for our lives, and our spiritual practices can realign us with God's intention and indeed with God's being. I believe that we thrive best in community with one another and in communion with that which is greater than ourselves. Our inward beings seek wholeness and the joy that is God. So I come from a place of positive theological anthropology. That is, that the focus of our justice work is not simply on stopping people from doing wrong, but empowering them to do the good that is inherently within them. Second, I believe that justice is at the center of God's longing for us and for our world. So the prophet Isaiah declares, "Is this not the fast that I choose, to loose the bonds of injustice, to undo the straps of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house? When you see the naked, to cover them and not to hide yourself from your own kin? Then your light shall break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up quickly. Your vindicator shall go before you. The glory of God should be your rear guard. Then you will call for help, and God will answer. You shall cry for help, and God will say, 'Here I am.' If you remove the yoke from among you, the pointing of the finger, the speaking of evil, if you offer the food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, Then your light shall rise in the shadows, and your gloom be like noonday. Then God will guide you continually and satisfy your needs in parched places and make your bones strong. You shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water whose waters never fail. Your ancient ruin shall be rebuilt. You shall raise up the foundations of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to live in. That is the strength of us, the strength of the nation, the strength of our well-being in God's vision is fundamentally wrapped up with how we care for the other and how we do justice on the earth. And of course, Jesus began his ministry saying, the Spirit of God is upon me, who has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. God has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to those who cannot see, to free those who are oppressed, and to proclaim the year of God's favor. That is, doing justice is central to Jesus's ministry and to ours as well. Third, I do believe that justice is possible and that change in this direction is absolutely possible, both in our worlds and in our individual lives. As the Unitarian minister, Theodore Parker, who was famously quoted by both Martin Luther King Jr. and Barack Obama, declared in 1853, I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve or complete the figure by the experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience, and from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice. So if we look towards history, we can see, for example, that we have made tremendous changes in our world, some for good and some for bad. We have lifted a tremendous number of the world's people out of poverty and insecurity caused by disease, warfare, and famine. We could eliminate extreme poverty in the next 40 years, according to the United Nations. And at the same time, we've seen horrendous genocides and the placing of the entire world and its living beings in peril, whether through nuclear annihilation or climate change. We stand at an existential moment when we can do incredible good or wreak unbelievable havoc. But there are people in our communities and all around the world doing profound good for the good of humanity, for the earth and for its creatures. So in my courses, we look at multiple case studies of effective social change, communities and people transforming lives for the better. And as my colleague and fellow troublemaker, Dr. Gary Green, and I often point out, teaching people to notice injustice is necessary, but relatively easy. What is crucial and harder is learning to effectively create justice in the world. So let me make two more points about change. First, one of the most effective tactics to keep us from transforming our world for the good is to get us to believe that injustice is inevitable and that change is impossible. And that's simply not true. People have, will, and are making positive change in the world. I won't fall for the tactic of saying it's impossible, and I hope you and my students won't either. This is, for example, the genius of Nelson Mandela and his fellow inmates when the apartheid regime of South Africa locked them up in the incredibly harsh prison on Robben Island. There, they studied, organized, and planned for the country they would build after they would be released, even though every indication was that they would never be freed. They were frequently told that they were powerless and that nothing would ever change. But they organized for the day that it would. And when they emerged, they created a very different reality because they believed that reality was possible. I believe that level of social change happens in our world. I also believe in personal transformation and redemption on a personal level. Like Paul, whose hatred for the emerging Christian movement became a fierce love for Jesus and brought Paul to his life's work of spreading the good news. Or like Siddhartha Gautama, who passionately followed the ascetic path until he realized the value of the middle way, becoming the enlightened one, the Buddha. What they were once is not what they become. And the power of these stories is not that these are people beyond what we are capable of. Rather, these are stories that tell us that we too can be transformed. So we are essentially good. We are called to justice. We in the world can change. And finally, as a foundational point, I want to say that the world needs to change in radical and powerful ways if we are to create the beloved community, the world that our prophets say God seeks. Jesus said, the realm of God is already among you. I believe that we are called to be witnesses to every appearance that we can find of that realm, that we are to be creators of that space of beloved community, spreading it wherever we go. That's what it means to me to be a follower of Jesus, an itinerant rabbi who inspired acts of tremendous generosity and justice, loyalty, compassion, and joy. Think of those who sold their wealth to give it to the poor in response to his presence, who shared their bread and fish on a mountaintop. Think of the healings of body, mind, and spirit and social connection, of the parties that the religious authorities complained about as Jesus communed with those disreputable sorts. This is what we're called to create. And I believe it is also crucial that we have moments, we have glimpses of what does it mean to live in the beloved community, even for a few moments. Think for a minute, have you ever lived in that world? Found a space where we could breathe and take a breath, feeling fully accepted as trans, or free of anti-Semitism, or with others truly committed to anti-racist work, or in a place where understanding overcame violence, or love overcame fear. It's helpful to name these moments when we are there, because that's how we know that our dreams are possible and that the world that God sets before us can come about. And yet racism and inequity and inequality are deeply embedded in our history and culture. They have shaped our nation and our world and our individual lives, and they impede the development of God's realm on earth. And while caricatures of these ideas are being used to stir up fear in school boards around the country, here at United, we take seriously the responsibility to address and face our history and the damage that it has wrought for both communities of color and for white people. Engaging in racist practices harms our own souls and leads us to harm the bodies, minds, and soul of others. This is a problem that impacts all of us since we are steeped in a culture of intolerance. Dr. Cornel West, speaking in 2015 at the Unitarian Universalist General Assembly, talked about the importance of integrity, of intellectual integrity, of spiritual integrity, of being willing to look clearly at ourselves. He says we need to look at our insights as well as their blindnesses of ourselves first, then our communities, then our nation, and then our world. He goes on to say, quote, I've got a lot of vanilla brothers and sisters that walk with me and they say, Brother West, you know, I'm not a racist anymore. Grandma's got work to do, but I've transcended that. And I say to them, I'm a Jesus-loving, free Black man, and I've tried to be so for 55 years. And I'm 62 now, and when I look in the depths of my soul, I see white supremacy because I grew up in America. And if there's white supremacy in me, my hunch is you've got some work to do too. He concludes saying, oh yes, we're not talking about purity. We're not talking about pristine. What is the quality of your struggle? For West, the question is not whether or not we've been impacted by these, by racism or inequality in our country, but rather what is our quality of our struggle against them? And he goes on to say, quote, I want to be personal tonight because I come from a Black people for 400 years, terrorized, traumatized, stigmatized. But the best of our tradition is what? Generating the love supreme of a John Coltrane, the love ethic of a Martin Luther King Jr., the love sensibility of a Frederick Douglass, and an Ida B. Wells Barnett, and in the music of a Stevie Wonder. What is it about these people that in the face of being terrorized, they continually dish the love? These folk don't come from the sky. They come out of a tradition, fundamentally committed to love in the end, no matter what the situation is. How do we come to loving out of the midst of turmoil? And how does love transform the world? Behind the spiritual leader, many of the spiritual leaders West is talking about stands the teachings of Howard Thurman, the great theologian of the 20th century. He inspired Martin Luther King Jr. and other leaders of the civil rights movement, encouraging them to keep spiritual practice at the heart of their work. It is when we are spiritually centered that we can bring our very best to bear on changing the world. Thurman spoke of our spiritual longings as a hunger, and he wrote, when the hunger in a person's heart merges with that which seems to be the fundamental intent of life, community with God, the creator of life, is not only possible, but urgent. He goes on to say that this hunger can be something which enlightens us to human suffering and needs, or it can even go far deeper than that. This hunger in our hearts, Thurman said, is the clue by which we find the Holy of Holies, the dwelling place of God within us. And it is through spiritual practice and prayer that he says that we're able to follow that clue to the depths of God. He writes, the true purpose of all spiritual disciplines is to clear away whatever may block our awareness of that which God is in us. The aim is to get rid of whatever so may distract the mind and encumber the life, that we function without this awareness, or as if it were not possible. Prayer is the experience as he, she, they seeks to make the hunger dominant and controlling in life. It has to move more and more to the central place until it becomes a continuous, deliberate activity of the spirit. When the hunger becomes the core of the individual's consciousness, what was a sporadic act of turning towards God becomes the very climate of the soul. So how do we talk about spiritual practice as something which both removes those distractions, the distractions that keep us from the practice of justice, but also that moves us away from simply sporadic turning towards God to existing in a space of godliness and justice, when that hunger becomes the core of our being? So Thurman offers silence as the first stage, that silence in which we bring our bodies to physical stillness, where we can listen to, learn, to change, and to approach this spiritual altar, the holies of holies at which we encounter God, the God of justice. So I would say to do our greatest work for justice, we must cultivate our spiritual practices, cultivate what we must do every day in our life. And I want to give you an example of someone who's been a hero for me in this regard. Sister Janine Gramick is a Roman Catholic nun. She's devoted her life to ministry on behalf of the LGBTQ community. Of course, she's had her share of trials and tribulations with the Vaticans and with Catholic authorities. But she and I were both attended with 10 other clergy people at the first LGBTQ faith conference in El Salvador. And she and I had been booked to speak on a radio show in San Salvador. We were running late, and so they threw us in a taxi with some box lunches, heading to the radio station. And they had told us that at the radio station, they had hired armed guards to protect us if anyone were going to come attack us because of the controversial nature of the topic that we were speaking on. And so we're flying through the streets of San Salvador, and I am full of worry. I am thinking of everything from whether we are about to walk into danger to the moral obligation. I don't want anyone shot protecting me while we're doing this radio program, to what am I going to say, to the fact that we're in this taxi. And then the ad for the radio show that we're going to be on comes on the taxis on the radio. And I realized the taxi driver has got to know who we are, because there's a nun and a guy in a clerical collar sitting in the back seat. They're talking about a nun and a minister talking on this radio show. And while all of this is going through my head, Sister Janine is sitting there quietly eating her lunch as if she were on a picnic on a sunny hillside with nothing else around her. And I finally can't stand anymore. And I say, Sister Janine, you seem so calm. And she said, well, I've learned that if you just tell the truth, everything works out fine. And she just continued eating. And I thought, that is what a lifetime of spiritual practice and prayer does for you in the midst of this situation. And so I have tried to emulate her in following her in my spiritual practices. And I hope that someday I will become as calm as Sister Janine. So I want to suggest 4 particular ways. That's the foundational part. I want to suggest 4 particular ways in which spiritual disciplines can function to cultivate within us the resources necessary to be effective change agents in our world, to improve for us the quality of our struggle against injustice, and to allow us to approach that holy sanctum and perhaps calmness in the face of danger. They are that spiritual practice can open us up, transform us, enable us to be our best, most effective selves, and help us keep our focus on God's will for the world. First of all, spiritual practices open us. They open our hearts to ourselves, to one another, to the world. The beginning of Buddha's path to enlightenment, for example, was his awareness of suffering around him, a glimpse of a much wider world. A study of older people found that adding an additional 15-minute walk a week, in which participants opened themselves up to wonder, called an awe walk, yielded greater measures of happiness and well-being. Now, this would have come as no surprise to Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, who wrote, "The practice of walking meditation opens your eyes to the wonders and sufferings of the universe. If you are not aware of what is going on around you, where do you expect to encounter ultimate reality? Every path can be a walking meditation path, from tree-lined roadsides and fragrant rice paddies to the back alleys of Mostar and the mine-filled dirt roads of Cambodia. When you are awake, you will not hesitate to enter any path. You will suffer, not just from your own worries and fears, but because of your love for all beings. When you open yourself up in this way, your companions will be others on the path of awakening who share your insight. They will work with you side by side to alleviate the world's suffering." These practices, like Good Friday walks or Lenten journeys that have been led here in the Twin Cities by folks like Reverend Rebecca Vogel, Reverend Jim Bear Jacobs, who leads the Sacred Sites tours, and Reverend T. Michael Rock, to walk through our places in our city and see the points of pain and celebration. These open our eyes to see the world. And prayer changes us. It can take many forms. I love that Susanna Heschel, who was the daughter of the great Jewish thinker Abraham Joshua Heschel, said that when he marched in the civil rights movement, he really thought that he was walking in the path of the prophets, thinking of the prophets who were deeply concerned with social justice. And she wrote that it reminded him of the message of the prophets, whose primary concern was social justice, and of his Hasidic forebears for whom compassion for the suffering of other people defined a religious person. When he got home from Selma, Rabbi Heschel wrote, "For many of us, the march from Selma to Montgomery was about protest and prayers. Legs are not lips, and walking is not kneeling, and yet our legs uttered songs. Even without words, our march was worship. I felt my legs were praying." When we protest, when we march, when we walk, all of these are forms of prayer that can open us up to the world around us and let us act in compassion for others. Spiritual practices, prayer, taking a stand, can open the eyes of our hearts to see one another. I love the post-resurrection accounts of Jesus, the fact that people couldn't recognize him. Mary thought he was the gardener after the resurrection. Other people thought he was a stranger, but their eyes were opened in acts of fellowship and inclusion. When they broke bread together, they looked at him and were able to see the Christ. One of our most effective spiritual practices are those which open our eyes to truly see, recognize, and acknowledge the divine within the other. If you are holy, if they are holy, then that changes everything about how we must interact, how we construct a community, how we build a world. Yes? This is powerful and world-changing. It's sometimes unnerving and difficult. This opening up to others transforms the world, and it opens us up to transformation ourselves. My second point. We can choose to cultivate a way of being that moves us deliberately in order to be fully in further harmony with that vision that God has for our worlds. Repositioning ourselves as God's allies, as God's agent, and ensuring that we are all treated with human respect and dignity, with care and love. Social justice facilitator Adrienne Marie Brown writes, the places I'm drawn to in movement espouse a desire for transformative justice practices that go all the way to the root of the problem and generate solutions and healings there, such that the conditions that create injustice are transformed. We must be open to fundamental change in ourselves and in the world to reach that point where we transform the very conditions of injustice. So thinking back to what Cornel West shared in the clip we heard, we may have the poison of white supremacy within us because we've been raised in that culture. It's not native to us. It's not who we are. It's some aftermarket, after creation, trash sin that has been added to us? How do we rid ourselves of it when it arises, whether it's causing us to see ourselves or others as less than God does? I have found two approaches helpful depending on the circumstances. The first is to simply say to biased thoughts or emotions, no, you are wrong. I repent of you. I ask forgiveness for those who are harmed by this idea. I ask God to remove this sin from me. And then I consider how to counteract those thoughts that I have absorbed. Anti-racism trainer Verna Myers encourages going directly up to our biases and taking a strong look at them. They hold a lot less power that way. She gave a TED talk on this subject while continuing playing images of loving, peaceful, smiling Black men behind her as a way to change the narrative of our society. I see that kind of transformational work as a spiritual practice. The second practice I use arises from traditions of meditation and centering prayer. That is, learning to be aware of the thoughts that go through your head and letting them go. How did that get there? How did that idea come into my head? Well, go away. We are not our thoughts. Our brains repeat things we hear. We can choose to reject thoughts that are not in keeping with our beliefs and our visions. As Thurman notes, these are things which distract us and block us from communion with the divine within. And we can allow ourselves to be transformed with interactions with the other. Practices like pilgrimages, deliberate encounters with those who are different than we are, worshiping those with another faith, offering hospitality to those of another country, building friendships that are diverse as we long for our communities to be. Through mindfulness, we see the Spirit of God within the other and thus cultivating it within ourselves. We will be changed. We can move closer into alignment, cooperating with the holy between and among us. We can pray for the other. Jesus says very clearly to love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. I know, right? Hard, right? This is where the spiritual life really matters. It's what makes it effective, that it is hard to do. When I pray for those who are oppressors, when I pray for those who I'm in conflict with, and I really do try to do this frequently, God has a way of softening my edges. I'm able to see the other as human, as struggling, as vulnerable, still responsible, but differently. I'm also able to think more clearly. How might I reach this person? How can I prevent them from harming others? What does God want changed in this situation? I use the word effective here. How is prayer effective in changing the world? It works to change my way of thinking and make me a better agent from change. Which brings me to my third point, that spiritual practices enable us to bring our best, strongest, and most centered selves to the world of social change. When we are upset, anxious, angry, even for very good reasons, we rarely do our best thinking. Our brains are cluttered with fears, rumblings, you name it. But when we are centered, we see ourselves clearly, compassionately, helpfully. My most helpful practice when I'm heading to a protest is to sing to myself Marty Haugen's song, "Shepherd me, O God, beyond my wants, beyond my fears, from death into life." It calms me, so I'm ready to do good in the world. There are many things that can function in this way. Our spiritual practices can also set us apart and remind us of what's important about what we're doing. Henry and I have given up using single-use plastic bags, which means when we forget our reusable bags at the grocery store, sometimes I have to walk out, juggling boxes of groceries or juggling things in my arms. But I don't delude myself that my personal failure to use plastic or refusal to use plastic bags is somehow changing the entire planet. But it's just like other spiritual practices, it sets me apart. It reminds me what's important to me. It reminds me that I want to be a person who is contributing to the well-being of our planet. Visions of justice from our sacred traditions connect us like that, remind us why we're doing and what we're striving for. That when they remind us about what we're about, why we are here, then the petty things can fall away and our focus can remain. We keep our eyes on the prize, as the spiritual says. So how do we sustain ourselves with, these are some ideas about how spiritual practices can help connect us with the work of justice. But how do we sustain ourselves with these practices and for the long haul of social change. Because what I'm really interested in is how we go out into the world for a lifetime and continue to put practices into place that are this effective and that are this helpful, not just in theory, but in practice. So this really gets to the heart of my the favorite lecture that I give in class. So I want to suggest that part of this process is the ways in which these spiritual practices transform us may lead us to think differently about three different factors than I think are often thought about in social change work. And those three factors are anger, tiredness, and joy. So let me share a little about each of those. So there is certainly just anger, and there are certainly many things that we should righteously be angry about in our society. But I started thinking more carefully about anger in response to two different things. First, a few years ago, I was on a committee in Arizona that was providing respite shelter to migrants on the border. And there was the leader of our committee jumped up in the middle of a meeting, said she was so angry with President Trump about his policies on the border that she couldn't stay in the meeting anymore, and she stormed out of the meeting. Well, it broke relationships, and it meant in the middle of the very good work trying to provide humanitarian relief for what people were doing, the meeting broke down. Her anger, while justified, prevented us from doing some good, got in the way. We have a lot to be angry about, justifiably and helpfully. But I also realized in that moment that when our anger consumes us, we can derail ourselves. So anger can be a force that motivates us. It can be related to compassion. When we see someone else facing injustice, we are rightly angered. When we are faced with injustice, anger can help build in us resistance against absorbing the view of the oppressor. But unresolved anger can also prey on us. And living in chronic anger can cause chronic health problems. It's well documented. Things like the being angry over time leads to heart disease, difficulty concentrating, headaches, insomnia, and so forth. And there's a temptation when we're angry to step away from our values and how we treat others. Just think of the phenomenon of road rage, for example. Most people who get furious on the highway would not treat people like that in real life or in life outside their cars. So to be productive, anger needs resolution. I heard a great talk by Jessica Weifang Wong, who teaches at Fuller Seminary. She says to be fully productive, anger needs some kind of resolution, so that when people are angry in interpersonal relationships, if you go to someone and they really hear that what you're angry about and that you are, and they say, "Oh, I apologize. I hear why you're angry at me," and they resolve that conflict, that can build stronger relationships. The problem in social justice is that we often have things that cannot be resolved. So that was my first insight. The second thing that really got me thinking about it was a resource that we read in some of my classes, called Out of the Spiritual Closet, which talks about the impact of spirituality on social justice movements. And they point out there that many of us as activists have been trained and train others to act from a place of anger. So some of my early activist work was with ACT UP, the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, in which, those in the LGBTQ community who felt incredibly powerless in the face of AIDS used anger to target government agencies, pharmaceutical companies, various things to bring about change. And that anger did bring about change. But some of their most important policy work was changed when people then got people's attention with anger, but then came in with knowledge and transformed that. And that anger is draining to sustain over time. And so if you could see my PowerPoint, I have a lovely slide that says "Love Trumps Hate" with people screaming in anger underneath this sign about love. So I think there's mixed messages in many of our movements when we think about it. It's easy to see others erupting in rage in our society and see that as a sign of spiritual disease. But is anger part of the way in which we know to do activism? And what can we do about that? Are there ways in which we can vent our anger with God, sometimes at God, through God? How can we move to a place of deep compassion for our enemies, for our oppressors, for ourselves, for those harmed by oppression? allowing ourselves to be fueled by anger and injustice, but not allowing anger to take our vision from us. How can we live in love but not anger? And again, I wish I could share my slide with you, but that computer failed. But I have an image of Aisha Evans, who's a Black Lives Matter activist. On one side of the screen are police officers in complete riot gear, and she is standing in deeply peaceful protest, holding her hands out for the handcuffs. And when you look at the image, if you look her up, you'll see that there is so much spiritual power radiating from her body. And you see actually the soldiers, the police officers there, as weak and afraid behind their helmets in face of her power. That to me is the power of spiritual practice and the spirit of centeredness, the kind of centeredness in the inner sanctum of God that Howard Thurman was talking about. So I asked my students the other day, can our existence in moral certitude, when we're grounded in deep morality and great spirituality like that, how does that change the power dynamics of our situation in our world? Who becomes powerful and who becomes powerless? And that moral power is the basis of the nonviolent protest movement begun with Gandhi and continued through the civil rights movement and into our own day. I also want to share a couple that are there ways in which anger can be balanced or transformed or shared with joy. We can be very uncomfortable with joy in social change movements. I was shortly after, about a month after George Floyd was killed, I was at a protest with a friend who said she had to leave early because she needed to go to a 4-year-old's birthday party. And she said she felt so guilty about celebrating when people were suffering. And this is a real emotion. But the joy of that 4-year-old, that party, it can be a space to remind her of the world that we're trying to build away from injustices and the ways that we are suffering. Can we be comfortable with joy? Because many of our traditions teach us that joy is a hallmark of the divine, that joy is a forerunner of that dominion of God. And joy can be a force that healed us. When I was pastoring in San Francisco during the height of the AIDS epidemic, it was an incredibly difficult time to be a pastor. I pastored right in the heart of San Francisco in the gay neighborhood. And from time to time, we would go down to the Santa Cruz boardwalk right on the beach and ride the old roller coasters, the really rickety old roller coasters. And while we would go up and down on those hills, we would scream and laugh hysterically because we needed that outlet of joy in order to balance the pain that we were feeling. Joy became an act of defiance, saying, I am still here. I still experience the richness and the beauty of life. At that same migrant shelter I was talking about where the leader stormed out of the meeting, the children there showed us an experience of what joy meant for resilience. They would come off the ICE detention vans, clutching in a plastic bag all of their belongings, another change of clothes usually, and maybe a stuffed animal or a toy. And they would come off, they'd be hiding behind their parents, they'd be frightened. And behind us, there'd be a row of volunteers with fruit, and behind them, a playground. Within 10 or 15 minutes, those children would have eaten their snack and be running around screaming with joy. The minute they hit freedom, they knew it was time to make new friends and run around and play. That is joy as an act of defiance, joy as an act of liberation. And in George Floyd Square, some of the signs that went up proclaimed Black joy. In the midst of death, in the midst of suffering, we claim a space of joy. That is a spiritual practice, a spiritual revelation. And then finally, I want to talk just for a minute about tiredness and social justice and the spiritual practice of Sabbath. We tend to think of tiredness as the enemy. That is, we cannot rest until a time of liberation comes. And in some ways, that's true. We cannot give up on justice. But on the other hand, we tend to take that very literally. And we work until we're exhausted, and then we take a bubble bath and drink a glass of wine and call that self-care. But that's not really the way to think about tiredness, I would suggest. I hope that there are some athletes or backpackers or bikers in the room. And you remember what it's like to be after a race or a long hike or a long bike ride. Those moments when your body feels exhausted, but you're happy or you're clear-headed or you're cleansed. We don't run continually. Even people who run repeated marathons have to stop and rejuvenate. And often in social justice work, we think we must continually race to do more, because after all, there are always one more person who needs our help, and then one more, and then one more. Even Jesus said, the poor will be always with you. And so too often we continue to think that we have to race and race and race. There are always millions who need help and housing, water, dignity, and liberty. But this is where the Sabbath practices of rest can help us. There are evidence that we are actually more productive if we work less and take more breaks. It's a better practice for our health, for our well-being, and it's certainly built into many of our sacred writings and our sacred traditions. What does it mean to stop and be in silence, to rejuvenate? So what if we thought of social justice work as a series of races? We work hard, we're all in, we give our very best, and then we stop and we rest. And if you can't stand that, I will tell you one pro tip I've found when I need to take a break and still feel like I'm contributing. Take a week off from doing direct work and just encourage other people. Send notes, and cheer the team on of other people who are doing the work. It's doing a little something different, and you will feel rejuvenated. But these practices of Sabbath actually enable us to do more work, more good, to be more compassionate with the other, to strive to create systems and structures that withstand the forces of oppression and build lives in which people can all thrive. And finally, I want to encourage you to cultivate relationships, a relationship with your body, with that period of rest, helping our tired minds and bodies recover, like with from a race, getting enough sleep and rest, eating good food. Remember, local food is both a justice issue and it has more nutrients. And participating in radical self-love, of coming to love ourselves and care for ourselves. And then finally, cultivating our relationships, finding the right companions on the journey. Remember, as Adrienne Marie Brown said, we will find the companions on the way as we do this. And so you're missing a very silly slide of me doing the conga with some of my closest friends in social justice work. But we are more effective when we work together. None of us are in this alone. And our spiritual practices in community can remind us to do that work together. So I wish for all of you both as a deeper connection with that inner sanctum that Thurman talks about, using spiritual practices to take away any barriers of your relationship with that deep inner connection of God's self, who calls us to the work of justice, but also renewing and resting yourself so that you can bring your very best into the moments, to the crucial work that we need to do to end inequality, to end racism, to bring about a just and thriving world. Thank you. And I think I'm turning it over to Cindy Beth to do some questions. So Dr. Johnson?
That's fine. Well, let's first give Justin a wave and a thank you. It's hard to clap on Zoom, but that was wonderful. And thank you especially for doing it when you're having some technical problems, which we all have had those, and that's not easy. So I want to invite people to drop a question in the chat. And while you're thinking of your question, I'll say two things. One is I'll talk to Justin about if we can share the slides later, because I think we're all intrigued, even though I could picture some of those pieces that you were talking about. And then I wonder, Justin, do you have an example of, I can turn do you have an example of a congregation that's really worked at having a spiritual practice alongside, you gave a lot of great examples that I want to go back to, but like this congregation always did this. I mean, we all have prayer, but other examples of a congregation that really melded those things?
But I will say the congregation that we were that I was in Tucson, where I shared the examples from where we created the migrant shelter. At the core of the work, when people asked us how to get involved in the work, we would say the first thing you can do is pray for the situation, because we had people of all different ages and abilities, and people were like, if I can't mop a floor, I can't care for a child, then I am not, then I'm not participating. And we would say, no, holding, like the spiritual practice of holding us in your prayers and holding the situation in prayer, praying for a root solution to the problem. That's the first and most important thing that you're doing. Out of that prayer then motivates people. I think those prayer times then motivated people to discern what it was that they could personally do. But the prayer comes first, the discernment comes first, the silence comes first, the encouragement of others comes first, and then the action comes out of it. And that was that's the only ministry I've ever been part of where we had to really wrestle, because we had there's never such a thing as too many volunteers or too much money, but we had more than we were able to immediately respond to, because people responded so significantly. And I would say the fact that it came out of a deeply spiritual place was definitely a part of that. And related to that work, that was also in the environment where we were involved with some of our volunteers came from, and there was overlap with the church of people involved in the Samaritans, which are groups that go out and leave food and water at the border. Many people are motivated by their practice as Jews, as Christians, as people who are spiritual but not religious. And people would say directly like that those passages from the Bible that I mentioned, or Jesus in Matthew 25 saying, "I was thirsty and you gave me drink." People were directly motivated by those practices to go into action. So I think it's really important to think of how those things can guide us into right places.
So a question from a colleague, this Demian asking, I really appreciate your insistence on the indispensability of spiritual practice. And I would add theological grounding for sustaining justice work over the long haul.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would have loved to do a whole lecture on this theological grounding as well. Thank you. Thank you for that. I think it's absolutely, we can engage in social justice work for reasons that are not helpful, because we want to be heroes, because we feel guilty, because we feel peer pressure, because we are in a hurry, because we are because we hate others. And I think this is the power of the civil rights movement and the kind of practices of Howard Thurman that Martin Luther King and Bayard Rustin and others inculcated, which is that if we are genuinely going to transform the world, it has to be grounded. We have to be doing it for the right reasons, and those reasons I think are best cultivated in for theological and spiritual. Theological and spiritual grounding.
Thank you. So Nancy Victor Vanger saying, thank you for the witness to prayer. As so often people disparage thoughts and prayers as shallow and superfluous and hypocritical, which it can be. But I hear you reclaiming the prayer practice that empowers and centers our social justice work. So that's lovely.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you think that students, I don't want to put students on the spotlight here, but do you feel as though the students who are coming to seminary today come with a big canvas of spiritual practice, or is that part of what they have to learn as they're also at seminary?
I would say it's a mixture. One of the things I love about our students is the level of spiritual seeking, that people have tried different practices. And I guess I want to express a point of my own anger in the ways in which, and acknowledge the ways in which, particularly the Christian background for some has so tainted some of those practices. The fact that people experience alongside, for example, the depth of prayer or of reading of sacred texts, being used as proof texts for the rejection of LGBTQ people, or the cover up of, the denial of racism or denial of climate change, right? So when students are passionate about these issues, but the practices they've been taught to sustain themselves have been tainted, I think, I think that's heartbreaking. But I also love to see the ways in which students are then reclaiming or relearning or trying okay, if that doesn't work for me anymore, let me try this other practice. And so I think it's a combination of both. But I really think in our world, people, including those who identify as spiritual but not religious, people use that label because they have a deep spiritual hunger. We want to make sense of the world. We want to find our purpose and meaning in the world. We want to connect deeply with others. And I think we have a responsibility in the seminary environment to think of how do we translate those into ways that address those questions for people in relevant ways in the 21st century that do not contribute to spiritual woundedness, but in fact allow people to explore, right? We should be having conversations about the nature of God at midnight over pizza, because that's part of the joy of being a theologian or being a spiritual person. And so, I think that's a spiritual practice too. So how do we, I hope that I hope I suggested some ways, like my plastic bag situation, to think about like, how do we expand those spiritual practices to things that are relevant for us that may or may not look like our traditional pieces.
I like to see some students are saying that they're finding spiritual practices while they're here. Well, I'm going to turn this back over to President Marshall. You're going to have to unmute.
There we go. You should not have worried, Justin, about being the summative guy in the series. This was absolutely wonderful, and the integration of practice and theological grounding honed through a lifetime of this kind of service has moved us deeply. Maybe what will stick with me is when you said too much money and too many volunteers. I'm not sure I've ever run into that situation along the way, but I'm glad it was your problem at one point. Thank you so much for this very thoughtful lecture, and all of the faculty who have given themselves to this over this past academic year. And I want to thank all of you who have joined us tonight. It's the last of this lectureship series, but as always, if you're intrigued by what you've heard, I encourage you to check out our website. We will be doing some more of these lectures, maybe paired kinds of conversations about how things have changed in our disciplines, maybe bringing back former faculty to help us think our way together into how spiritual, theological, and practical flourishing occurs. You'll see always that United's commitment to education is paired with equally strong commitments to inclusivity and justice, spirituality, and the arts. We are grateful for your presence with us tonight and trust that the words that Justin has offered us will find deep resonance as we think about our own practices toward justice in this groaning world. May you be blessed this night and always. Take care.